Perhaps he was not the talk of the town when he got drafted into the NBA, but he displayed his abilities and potential on the hardwood floor alongside LeBron James. He had great moments, and the limelight focused on him, but unfortunately, he is currently the subject of much negative media attention after making headlines for all the wrong reasons. West knows he has to keep explaining. How can someone go from being an all-star who made more than $16 million in his career to a homeless man begging for money on the streets? This is the curious case of Delonte West. To understand this man's story, we need to go back to the past. First, let's get to know this guy.
Let's play full court, baby.
Your go-to channel for the most interesting basketball topics. Delonte West was born in Washington, D.C. on July 26, 1983. Unfortunately for Delonte, his childhood would not represent a fairy tale. Delonte's parents divorced when he was young, and he grew up poor in a dangerous neighborhood. Delonte describes his childhood as happy poor. Even though he and his family were poor, he would move around from one relative to another, never settling down in one location for more than a few years. Delonte's mental health was clearly compromised from a young age, and it was evident that something was up. At the age of 12, he sustained a leg injury that kept him out of basketball. Delonte's only true comfort zone was on the basketball court. When he was a youngster, the other kids would tease him because he was of mixed ancestry and for his red hair. Delonte didn't feel like he could fit in with anyone. Delonte started to miss classes regularly. For him, going to school was pointless if he couldn't play ball. Things would only get worse with Delonte. West fell into a deep melancholy when he was 14 years old and made several unsuccessful attempts to end his life. Delonte was frequently admitted to hospitals during this time, and his mother couldn't cope with the situation. She had the feeling that it would be beneficial for Delonte to move and live with his father. Her assumption would be wrong. Delonte's father couldn't care less about his son's issue in any way, shape, or form. On top of struggling with depression and having a mother who was incapable of dealing with him, and a father who couldn't have cared less about him, Delonte attended a new school where his father lived, and he became acquainted with some troubling individuals. These bad influences that Delonte was now exposed to had a role in him developing an addiction to alcohol as well as prescription pills. Eventually, though, Delonte's leg injury would heal. West had always turned to basketball as a haven, but it was during one of his visits to the hospital after one of his several attempts at suicide that he stumbled into God. And here is when he discovered his faith in the Almighty. This was the foundation upon which the troubled teen's life was built, and it gave him the determination to persevere along the terrible path he had chosen. Delonte was already an established basketball talent by the time he reached high school. A graduate of Eleanor Roosevelt High School in Greenbelt, Maryland, Delonte had some Maryland history under his belt. After a stellar high school career at Eleanor Roosevelt, where he was named Player of the Year among other awards, West was recruited by St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. It was here that the up-and-coming guard with a bright future would establish and prove himself. West played alongside another player who would go on to have a successful career in the NBA, Jameer Nelson. Together, these two would lead their teams to a historic undefeated regular season run in 2003, beating teams such as Cal, Gonzaga, and Villanova in the process. They would go all the way to the Elite Eight in that year's NCAA tournament. West would finish his career with St. Joseph with averages of 18.9 points on shooting 51% of the time, 5.4 rebounds, 4.7 assists, and 1.7 steals in his third and last season there. When Delonte was a junior, he and Jameer Nelson were widely regarded to be the most outstanding backcourt in the entire country. After that, West would enter himself into the 2004 NBA draft, which is when the Boston Celtics would ultimately select him with the 24th overall pick. During his first season, Delonte's promising run of good fortune is interrupted by a series of unfortunate events. Injuries plagued him, which limited his appearance on the floor for a total of 39 games. Delonte's run of bad luck would come to an end by the time he started his second season. He was named the starting point guard for the Celtics and turned in some strong performances throughout the season. Delonte had a spectacular night, scoring a career-high 31 points in a game that the Boston Celtics won in double overtime against the Timberwolves. He also made a career-best 12 free throw shots in that game. In the Celtics' 124-117 triumph, Delonte scored all of his 31 points in the second half and the 2 overtimes. On November 8, 2006, Delonte proved he has the clutch gene by scoring the game-winning basket in the last seconds of a close game against the Charlotte Bobcats. On March 3, 2007, he also hit a game-tying three-pointer against the New Jersey Nets with 4 seconds remaining in regulation. 3 years later, the feisty guard would find himself playing alongside a young LeBron James with the Cleveland Cavaliers following a trade deal in 2008. West would go on to make the most money of his career during this period, raking in a total of $9.8 million during his stint with the Cavaliers over the course of 3 seasons with the team. In a playoff game against the Washington Wizards on April 27, 2008, Delonte hit the biggest shot of his entire career. It was Game 4 between the Wizards and the Cavaliers. At that point in the series, the Cavaliers led 2-1. Delonte West knocked down the game-winning three-pointer with 5.4 seconds left on the clock after receiving a dish from LeBron James. The Cavs went up 3-1 and eventually won the series 4-2. Delonte West and LeBron James connecting on a three-pointer to win Game 4 was a wonderful connection. However, despite playing a significant role in a Cleveland team that would go on to make extended playoff runs in each of the 3 seasons that West was with the team, this was also the point where the beginning of the end all started for him as well. In 2010, the Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics were in the midst of a heated matchup in the Eastern Conference semifinals. This is where Delonte and LeBron's bond would begin to collapse, as well as LeBron's relationship with the Cavaliers and the rest of the team. At that point in the series, the Cavaliers led the Celtics 2-1. It was believed that LeBron James found out some upsetting news concerning his teammate Delonte West right before Game 4 of the series. West was linked to a nasty rumor that both he and LeBron strongly deny to this very day. According to the rumor, West allegedly had an affair with Gloria James, who is LeBron's mother. West and LeBron both deny the allegations. The media took up the very controversial storyline very quickly, and they would later refer to the development as the reason why Cleveland's postseason performance in the 2009-2010 season was so forgettable. Following that season, James infamously left the Cavs for the Miami Heat, and with West being released by the organization the same summer, it was at this moment that he began to fall to pieces. The rumored affair was never completely proven, although Delonte West did sort of acknowledge it in a 2014 interview with Vice Sports. "I named my son Cash after Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali's birth name, and Johnny Cash. His middle name is Delonte, but I didn't want to name him Delonte West Jr. just because of that. I don't want my son going to school and people making fun of him for something his daddy did. Oh, didn't yo daddy have sex with LeBron James' mama? Man, I don't want to deal with all that." This controversy unfortunately wasn't the first for Delonte in his short-lived NBA career. However, controversies followed West wherever he went during his entire career in the NBA. Delonte had a couple of breakdowns throughout the preseason in 2008. He went off on a referee during a preseason game against the Cavs in 2008. He also slammed his teammates following 2 preseason losses. Delonte was forced to see a therapist by the Cavs organization, and he was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder. West had previously been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and it was suspected that this mental condition was the root cause of his unpredictable behavior. In 2009, he was taken into custody when police discovered that he possessed at least 3 loaded firearms. But the truth is, he was only stopped for a simple traffic violation. Then the police found 3 guns, one of which was a Remington 870 shotgun. Delonte was carrying the guns because his mother informed him that some young family members had seen them in a closet. Despite his reasons, Delonte lacked a carry permit and finally pled guilty to weapons and traffic violations. He was sentenced to electronic monitoring for 8 months, probation for 2 years, and 40 hours of community service and counseling. In addition to the charges related to firearms, Delonte's wife also filed a complaint against him for domestic abuse in October 2009, 2 months prior to the traffic stop that led to the gun charges against Delonte. He tied the knot with his wife, who had been his college love. They filed for divorce exactly 1 month later. These heartbreaks would depress anyone. Someone with bipolar disorder would feel the effects of these heartaches far more intensely. Delonte would be let go by the Cavaliers at the end of the 2010 campaign, and after spending the next season with the Celtics, he would find a new home with the Dallas Mavericks. Delonte's career in Dallas would not last very long at all, following a season in which he was limited to playing in only 44 games due to a fractured and dislocated right ring finger. He played in his final NBA game as a member of the Dallas Mavericks in 2012. He was finally dismissed by the Mavericks on October 29, 2012, after receiving repeated team-issued suspensions for his role in many heated locker room fights. This wouldn't mark the official end of his basketball career, though. Delonte would play in several semi-pro leagues as well as a few international leagues. West would go on to play in the NBA D-League as well as a 2-year stint in China. But despite his several attempts to return to the NBA, he was utterly unsuccessful. In 2015, Delonte made it to the NBA D-League, where he played for the Texas Legends, the minor league affiliate of the Dallas Mavericks. Then they released him in March 2015, marking the end of his basketball career. Since his retirement from the NBA in 2012, things have been incredibly challenging for the former NBA point guard Delonte West. He played in the league for 8 years and was considered a pretty great player during his playing days in the NBA. However, things have gone downhill quite a bit for him since he retired. After spending a significant portion of his life battling challenges related to substance abuse and mental health problems, West ended up living on the streets in 2016. Unfortunately, Delonte's struggles would never come to an end. In 2016, a picture of shoeless Delonte West wearing a medical gown and standing in front of a Jack in the Box restaurant in Texas became popular on the internet. This event took place in the month of February. Then only 4 months later in June, Delonte was seen in Maryland, where he was apparently begging for money. It's really heartbreaking to think of a former NBA player who made $1 million and is now living in poverty once their playing days are over. Of course, Delonte denied being homeless. He says that he was helping a homeless man. Not a lot of people believe Delonte's story, and it wouldn't be until 2020 that the whole world would get a realistic look at how awful things are for the former NBA player. In January 2020, another video of Delonte West went viral and became quite popular. This time, a video showed Delonte getting beat up in the middle of the street by a man who remained anonymous. Delonte had the impression of being homeless, and he did not appear to be in good health. In the video, Delonte went on and on about how he used to be a Navy SEAL and how he's the real president of the United States. Delonte West was clearly suffering from some kind of mental illness. As a result of these films going viral, a flood of support on social media came from NBA players and general managers. One of these general managers was Danny Ainge, who is currently with the Boston Celtics. He offered Delonte a position as a scout with the Celtics, but Delonte's inner demons would end up sabotaging this chance. The Celtics were forced to relieve Delonte of his responsibilities as a result of his highly erratic attendance, which led to the decision to let him go. Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, reached out to Delonte West, and after several failed efforts, West agreed to meet with Cuban. Mark Cuban ultimately funded Delonte's trip to a drug recovery program. In fact, he even booked a hotel room for Delonte and paid the bill. Delonte West's luck looked to be turning around. In a comment on a photo of Delonte riding a horse at a rehab clinic, Mark Cuban wrote, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Delonte West. A long way to go, but he has taken the first steps and shared these with all of us as a thank you for the love and support." There are rumors that Delonte is working at the same rehabilitation facility where he previously received treatment. The whole NBA community breathed a sigh of relief, thinking things were beginning to look up for the former player. Unfortunately, Delonte West was featured in the headlines again, and for all the wrong reasons. Delonte was slamming on the doors of the police station in Boynton Beach in the state of Florida. He was carrying around a few bottles of beer in addition to having some vodka on him. After the police officers had brought Delonte outside and detained him, he would curse at and provoke the officers who had brought him outside. He would claim that he was both a secret agent and Jesus Christ. In addition to this, he stated that he was a greater basketball player than both Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Seeing a once promising athlete struggle through awful issues related to their mental health is really upsetting and heartbreaking. It's easy to pass judgment on someone like Delonte West, especially if you don't know the entire picture. In reality, he's still fighting the same battle to this day, and we can only hope and pray that he is finally able to turn his life around. Thank you for watching. Why not interact with us? Subscribe and hit the notification button to be notified when we upload more content. Don't forget to leave a like and comment below. Also, feel free to suggest any type of videos you would like to see on this channel.
Full court.